Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pestana. We're here today with special guest, Dr. Scott Guerin, who's here to share with us his new award-winning book, Awkward Awakening: Finding Your Way Home. What if everything you've been taught about our place in the universe is only part of the story, and your awakening has already begun? Well, today's guest is here to share with us just that. Dr. Scott Guerin is an award-winning and best-selling author and educator with a passion for exploring the mysteries of God, the universe, and their relationship with humanity. With 2 master's degrees and a doctorate in human development, he has spent 23 years as an adjunct professor in psychology at Kean University. His popular Angel in Training series highlights society's shift from organized religion to spirituality. His latest work, Awkward Awakening: Finding Our Way Home, invites readers to awaken to their divine nature and their galactic heritage. So welcome to the show, Dr. Scott Guerin.
Hi, Marianne. Glad to be back. Glad to hear your voice.
My goodness, just a great honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. What inspired you to write this?
Well, I had done the Looking for Angels book a couple years ago with Nicole Bigley, and that was all about angels and, ins and outs and scientific and psychological, and then on the psychic side, how to connect. And personal transformation through that book, that I was able to develop a robust, relationship with a spirit team, which I never would even dreamed of before happening. And that really opened my mind to consider, what is really going on in this world. Something's happening, what's going on and where are we headed? And through my own kind of connections with my spirit team and reading and really being led to other authors, I felt very compelled. I really feel this book was given to me to write. I had an Akashic record reading a little over a year ago. And in that, and I never had one before. And so, the woman, Melissa Sparrow, was kind of telling me about my life and past lives, and my parents came in. They had passed in 2020, and and my mom was talking to her. Talking to me through her, and it was absolutely my mom. She was telling me things that no one else could have known. And in that reading, Melissa said, you're getting a scroll handed down by your spirit team, and that is a book. Do you have any idea of a book that you're thinking of writing? And I said, I don't know, nothing really, but maybe awakening, because I'm seeing what's happening in this world and wondering about that. And she said, that's it. It's about awakening. That is the book. And you're going to take the next year to learn the content of what to write in that book. And so that was it. I was off, and I went to Egypt shortly after that reading. And that was a big spiritual awakening for me, a spiritual connection for me, just being around in the sites and the temples and absorbing as much as I could, because you get bombarded with all kinds of information. But through that time, I felt a connection, and then the content started just kind of forming in my mind, usually late at night. Sometimes I would just start writing during the day, and, thoughts would come out about what to write about. And that's the germ of the whole thing. I feel of any other book I've written, this was given to me to present.
What a deep connection you have with the spirit realm and the information you were given. If we look at your previous book, Looking for Angels, is there a connection between that and Awkward Awakening?
It relates. It's an extension. It's an extension of this, of the spirit world, of who we are, in connection with the divine. In the angel book, we spoke a few times about, our connections with the angels and how we are all loved. We're all part of God. We're all one. And that kind of set the stage. It's sort of like, one time Nicole, who, communicates with angels on a regular basis and has, is a practitioner. She said that Archangel Michael told her that he said, we are the gateway drug to the spiritual world, right? Because, everybody knows about angels. We grew up with them. We know about them. We're familiar with them. And once you get in connection with them and start thinking and getting in connection with, the other dimensions and other dimensional existence that angels are in, obviously, past loved ones, how that works, and, then your mind starts opening up. And so that was the first part of what the message I was told to send, is to confirm that, we do have connections with the spirit world, and we're in fact a part of that. And then the second part of the message is that once, as humanity we're ascending, we're awakening to a higher spiritual plane. And as the collective humans on planet Earth, as we ascend to a higher level of vibrations, of love, of unity. I know it's hard to see right now when you turn the news on, but there's so many pointers that says this is going to happen. And when that does, we will open up to our galactic neighbors. Matter of fact, they've been waiting for us to kind of get our act together, in a sense, to look at ourselves as one collective group of a unified civilization on planet Earth. And once we get that, then that's when the quote unquote first contact will be made.
So do we have our act together? Because you're right. I mean, we look at the news and it seems like everything is so negative and so divisive.
Right. And that's the big puzzle. So as I was delving into this, I started looking at, some of the old, spiritual traditions. And when you start looking into that, certainly in the Judeo-Christian tradition, you have a new earth type of idea put out there in the Book of Revelation. You look in Islam, same thing. Then you look in the Hindu religion, and you have the concept of yugas. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Do you think?
No, I'm not. Can you share that?
Okay. So the Earth is spinning, right? Spinning around, and we're on tilt. We're tilted, so we can experience seasons. But the Earth is wobbling a little bit, and it's called Earth precession. And that's, everybody, geologists, scientists get that. And what that means, it's like a top that's slowing down on a table. It starts to wobble a little bit. So if you take a beam of light and shoot it straight out from the North Pole into the stars, that wobble will make a circle, right? It'll make a circle around the soul into the stars, into the solar system. And the Hindus took that, and it moves in 1 degree every 70 years. So it takes about 17,000 years, or I'm sorry, 29,000 years to go one full 360 degrees. And the Hindus divided that into 4 yugas, or periods of time. And we are coming out of, and you may have heard this, that we are coming out of the Kali Yuga, which is the second one. Say if the top is like from 12 to 3, that's the first one. And then from 3 to 6, that's the Kali Yuga. And those first 2 yugas are attributed with dormant, not a lot of growth, not a lot of compassion, not a lot of love, not a lot of unity, more conflict and strife type of thing. And then coming out of the Kali Yuga, we're starting to kind of come back into that third quadrant called the Satya Yuga. And the Hindus say that is a time of tremendous growth, tremendous positivity, a tremendous understanding of who we are. and that it's going to take the next 17,000 years, the second two parts of the yugas, and be a tremendous time of a golden age, a golden years. And so with one characteristic of moving out of the Kali Yuga, that can, in a sense, the winter months into the spring, is a lot of unrest, a lot of corruption being exposed, a lot of turmoil. And so that is what I thought, that's what's happening. I get that, right? So it seems that, and there are other pointers. I don't know if I have time to go into it, but there are other pointers that say the same thing. The Mayan calendar ended in 2012, but no one really looked into it. It's reset to a new period of time for the Mayan calendar. And it's the same thing, that transition, a lot of turmoil, a lot of corruption being unveiled, but a time of peace after. So you have that, and several other kind of sources and genres, of knowledge say that we are in a period of storm before the calm. And that is a key message in this book, is to to let people know that this is what is happening, to not fret, to not be dismayed and disheartened, and lose your faith in love, in God, however you believe in Him, our spirit team, that things are taking their course. They're going their course of a purging for a new age.
Well, thank you for taking the time to explain that. I thought it was so impactful to hear because, my goodness, it's so easy to get lost in all of the negativity. So to hear that this is actually what we're supposed to be going through, I think is really empowering for a lot of people.
Yeah, and then this follows also the quantitative numbers, which you have to try and bring in the quantitative as much as the spiritual, span that and straddle that sometimes. But quantitatively, as I think a lot of people know, where people are not associated with religion more than ever before. People are consuming, psychic services more than ever before. They see themselves as more spiritual than religious, or at least the trends are strongly going that way. And that was my journey too. I kind of moved from that organized religion to spirituality. But the thing that really got me, and I didn't get this until like a few months ago, was that the number of people meditating on the planet, and in the United States specifically, like our numbers tripled, from like 1917 to like 23. Tripled the amount of people that are meditating regularly. And in the world, it went from like a 4 or 5% to a 7 or 8%. And metaphysically, and if you want to bring in some physics to it, people meditating like that can make an impact on the frequencies of the earth, and make that transition to a higher level of frequency where you move away from separation and move away from separation to unity and love and light.
Well, I know you've touched on this a little bit, but why is awkward awakening so relevant today?
Well, the big thing is change, I'm a psychologist that dealt with, a lot of things like that. And one time I was working with a large behavioral health company, and I was managing corporate accounts, and I was managing their corporate behavioral health, benefits. And we offered services. And one of the things was to come in and talk about different things like depression, anxiety. The most popular thing that we got called in to talk about in a corporation was how to manage change. And that kind of underscored a lot, because in the model of change that we used was based on Kubler-Ross's stages of grief, right? You got denial, then you got anger, then you got bargaining, then you got depression, then you got acceptance. And that any change at all is first denied. And we can see that time and time again. George Bernard Shaw's famous statement, all great truths begin as blasphemy, right? Anything new, humans tend to say no. And so in this time of transitioning from a hard fast, not that all organized religion is bad, but a total dependency on it as a connection to spirit world is not the healthiest. And so as people investigate connecting with God, source, angels themselves more deeply and more spiritually, that's a new concept. And there's a lot of strife going on. People like, I'm leaving the church and, I'm going to a meditation group. Like that's change. And it can be met with some resistance, family and friends, etc. And so that's the awkwardness that to me struck out, that kind of, we have to remind people that it's in our nature to resist change. And then the change, certainly the big change, and we're hearing it a little bit now and then, is our interaction with ETs, which is coming sooner than later. A lot of people have dates on it, and anywhere from a couple years to who knows, later on, because it's up to us. They're waiting for us to get our act together. And so that's the second big part of awakening, is to say, you know what, there is other, UAEs and UAPs and other civilizations out there. And they've been not only involved with our earth for, thousands of years, but now we're coming close to what people call the first contact, which means open awareness. Like, yeah, they're here. They're open for commerce. We'll be working with them to exchange knowledge and technology and resources on a regular basis. So that is another part of the Great Awakening that is awkward.
Now, are they connecting with us because because you hear people talk about, oh, we're on the brink of disaster, or is it because we're on the brink of change?
It's interesting. That's an interesting question. It's they have been helping us in the background for for millennia, really. And as you probably know, the sightings of UFOs and UAPs have skyrocketed since since 1945, the atomic bomb. Why? Well, because that's the first time in human history we developed something that could destroy the planet. All right. And most of the sightings are around military bases and have been. So we have that protective type of thing, but at the same time, so guiding us to not kill ourselves, but at the same time, they're waiting for us to go through a natural process. And this is why I review in the book some of the civilizations that are out there, the main characters, I call them, the Pleiades, the Syrians, the Vegans, the Arcturians. They've all been around, right? We've been on the earth for maybe 400,000 years, humans. But their civilizations have been in existence for 500 million years, some a billion years. And they've been through what we're going through right now, many of them a few times. And so from their perspective, they're waiting for us, like a child, like a parent to a child, having sometimes you don't go running in and helping the child all along. They've got to learn on their own to, do certain things and live in the world. We have to figure out as well what things we need to do, how we need to relate to one another, and treat people and share resources and all that stuff. And so they're waiting for that to happen to come, before they come in. Now, some people say that they would only intervene if we were at the brink of self-destruction. Like, one thought I read somewhere that they wouldn't allow an atomic, bomb to to go and start a world war, of atomic world war. Others say, maybe not, maybe partial, they would, who knows? But they're certainly monitoring us and helping us go that delicate path of self-destruction versus self-awareness and ascension.
So, one of the things I want to dive into is the title of your book. People are familiar with the topic of awakening. So, why did you use the word awkward in your title?
Yeah, it's because it's uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable. New ideas are uncomfortable. As I mentioned, the first reaction to new things for many people is resistance. And so it's awkward. It's something new. It's something different. In both cases, our understanding that we are one, we are united, we are part of the divine. That's the first step. And then once we get that, that's when our interaction with our celestial neighbors will increase. So that's the next awkwardness. If you see now in the news, and partly because the whistleblowers in the military are able to come out and share their stories, stories of UFOs and sightings and interactions are going to be becoming more normal. So we have this awkward stage of change. I mean, obviously, in the United States right now, we have, a tremendous, rebuilding and tearing down of institutions and practices that have been in place for hundreds of years. And so that's all awkward in a sense. And that is going to lead to a better place. Eventually. But right now it's chaos. And right now we need to have a message of grounding, of hope, of patience, to help us through this time.
Do you think that the reason that there are so many more sightings that are taking place is because of technology? Because now we have cameras and phones much more available than we've had before. So that's taking place. Or is it because the sightings are happening because there's more sightings actually taking place themselves?
Yeah, well, I think, it's certainly a good point. 50 years ago, we didn't have, infrared sensors and radar and such like that. But if you go from 1945 or in the 50s till now, when we started gaining more technological sensory equipment, the numbers still increase. But now I think it's becoming more refined. Like, yeah, okay, now there is a sighting, but maybe now we have a sighting from, a regular visual to ultra, infrared to ultraviolet, whatever it may be. But you do have a point that it could be because we have more cameras around and pointed to the stars. So I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest. I do believe that the interest in our planet has increased because of our capability of self-destruction, and that warrants further and more tighter monitoring. But at the same time, we have increased our numbers of cameras and types of things that people can record these experiences.
I know I'm one of them. So, when I see something, I'm like, what is that? And I'll record it. So I'm sure I'm one of thousands of people, millions of people that actually do that.
Mm. Yeah.
So who is this book for?
It was sold, and I was told this early, in the Akashic record reading, who it's for. They said it's for people who are in the beginning of their journey, in the beginning of prodding into this awakening idea. And, kind of like me, although I'm a little bit down the road from it, but, okay, people are like, all right, I feel a need for a spiritual connection. I feel connected more than any other time in my life. But, I don't go to a church anymore. I don't necessarily want to just be told what to do. I want to experience something. So how can I look at this transition? And that's exactly what I propose in my book. I lay out the baby steps, like, how do we know what we know? Let's talk about, sacred texts. Let's talk about channeling. Where do we get information, about the spiritual world, and can we trust it? So those types of things help people, hopefully, to say, okay, I can go out on my own, in a sense. I can trust my intuition. I am a multidimensional person, or being. I am connected to the spirit world more than I ever knew. And so that, I hope, will be, and give people hope to, and be brave, to trust their intuition, trust their connections, to venture out and kind of map out like what's really happening in this world, and start thinking about what the new world is going to be like.
I think we can get excited about that, the thoughts of what we can create.
Yes, yeah. And some people said, like, how can you be so, optimistic and everything? It's like, are we going to even be around in a year, type of thing. And which is actually understandable if if you listen to the news and all this, but we have to see through that. We have to see through that and know that, and I have it mapped. I have a lot of different, in a sense, backup ideas and thoughts from people that say, yeah, this is going to happen. This transition to a more positive, unified world, it is going to happen. So we have to look kind of beyond that, beyond our current news cycle.
Mhm. I know you mentioned in your book that we're awakening to our divine nature. What do you mean by that?
Well, that's it. I mean, we're told in the one chapter I mentioned that we are multidimensional beings. We're stuck. No, we're stuck. We exist in a three-dimensional box. Length, height, and width, and time. People add a fourth dimension, time. And there's a whole spiritual world out there that we don't regularly interact with, except for cases of, say, near-death experiences, psychedelic drugs, trauma. Learning. You can learn how to pierce. I call it pierce the veil, and that's one chapter. How we can experience life outside of this physical world. And when you start doing that, the natural thing is to look at that we are all connected. That once people who have, nearly died and have those NDEs, they come back and they say, they get this, they have an overwhelming feeling of oneness, of connectedness, of peace and love. And that is reality. This is the temporary experience here. And so, and certainly religions for not, maybe, let's, on the positive side, religions put their teachings out there because they're zealous and they say this is what works for us. It was, we just believe this, and they want to just share the word, share the, their message, or they may have done that, maintain their doctrines out of control, to keep people under their thumb. So they preach and teach separation. That God's up there, we're down here. You listen to us, and then you'll be okay. But moving away from that to say, no, we are already connected to God, to Source. In fact, we're part of God and Source. We're a hologram. Like, a hologram is like a picture of a tree. You rip up the picture of the tree, and any piece of the tree will contain the whole tree, the image of the whole tree in it. And those, I provide multiple examples of what a hologram or a fractal is, and all that, to hopefully get people thinking into that. Yeah, we are divine beings. I am, you are, our neighbor is, the guy who just yelled at me at the stoplight is, whatever it may be. We are all one. And that's the most important message of this book, is that home is understanding that we're part of God, and we're all one. And that's the important thing to remember.
So do spiritual and religious trends, and I know we've been kind of tapping into that a little bit, do they, in our society, do they support this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the trends moving away from organized religion to spirituality have been strong for decades, maybe strong in the sense people moving away from organized religion to true spiritual nature, to psychic services, to looking into, mystical, metaphysical practices, is on the rise. So that's what kind of got me going on this and confirming that I was on the right track is that, as a human development psychologist, you kind of are trained to look at trends and see how people grow and change their perspectives, knowledge, and understanding of their world around us. I see that happening, and that's the tangible side. That, there is a change happening now. That, in addition to what's going on in the world, in addition to what's been foretold by the ancient scriptures and even modern day connections with extraterrestrials, all validate that there is a movement, a change in human development, a movement towards a greater future.
Thank goodness for that we have something bigger and better coming. And one of the things that you touched on, and I want to dive into a little bit more, is how we're multidimensional beings. Can you share on that for us?
Yeah, the physicist Mikio Kaku, he's a pretty popular guy on TV. You see him around. I read a little story that he wrote, and he said as a kid, he was looking at a fish pond, a goldfish pond, somewhere, and it was a kind of shallow thing, fish moving around. And he said, those fish really are living just in two dimensions. I mean, they know left and right and forward and backward, but the fish don't know up. And they don't know what up is because they can't go any further than the water level. And he said, if he took that fish out of the water, a whole new world would open up to them. They'd see people, breathing without gills and moving without fins, and their little world is now expanded. And that is what we are in right now. We are in a little fishbowl, in a box, so to speak. And if somebody could, through different ways like NDEs and psychedelic drugs and meditation, we can experience being pulled out of this box. And then we have beings, we have past loved ones, we have angels, we have ETs, and so that's coming out of the third dimension. So what I kind of map out is a couple different models of dimensional beings and what it means to be and experience a dimension outside of our 3D world, and so in general, the higher level dimensions, the higher densities that we exhibit are all towards, less separation and competitiveness and comparison and judgment. To the higher levels of, especially the fifth dimension and up, are dimensions where you just get it. You just know you're connected to each other and connected to source. And then you just go on even more to the different depths. But that's the general trend from lower dimensions to upper dimensions. And I have a few exercises in there about how to experience the different dimensions, because we can experience the fifth dimension while living in our third dimensional world. One easy thing: go for a walk with your partner, enjoy a beautiful sunset. Go in a room of puppies. Those feelings are the same as in the fifth dimension, and so that's where I kind of hopefully will get people to kind of I do everything kind of is static in a sense in this three-dimensional reality. And, hopefully they'll remember from those who read my other book that we're really walking microphones and cameras. Like we have a brain, and our eyes are cameras that have, very limited perception of all the energy that's bombarding us 0.004% of all the electromagnetic energy hitting us is only visible light. And then our ears are limited, or touch, whatever it may be. And then our brain processes that, and that's our reality. But well, what happens if there's things going on all around us, which there is, that we're missing out on? That's part of our awakening. That's part of our evolution, is to become aware of that.
You have 3 chapters on consciousness and unity consciousness. Why are these topics so important?
Well, to me, that is the next phase in human development, is an understanding and an exploration of our consciousness. It goes way back to, it's the idea of where does the mind, I relate consciousness and the mind in the same way. The consciousness is our awareness of who we are. It survives beyond our body. It's eternal. It's thought, it's energy. And so, I kind of retrace briefly, concepts of the mind. Years ago, people thought, and even now, people still think that our brain, our consciousness, our awareness is just contained in our brain. Like that's it. There's nothing beyond that. But, certainly other perspectives, and some scientific to some extent with the near-death experiences show that our consciousness can exist outside of our body. And when you dive into our extraterrestrial families, you'll see that they've developed consciousness to a tremendous level, mainly with a mind-matter interaction. They start involving consciousness and manipulating their physical surroundings. Many of their how they move around, certainly in their ships. You can read from several authors I have there. The ETs navigate and operate their ships mainly through their conscious control. And then you walk in Egypt, right? You see these 300-ton pillars of solid granite etched, with tremendous details, sharp lines going up 100 feet. And they were put there, but the most amazing thing was they were created like 300 miles or 200 miles south of the city that it was in. I think it was Azure, was the one I saw. And so you have samples of, they call it high technology, and one explanation is that possibly this could all have been done. The only way it could have been done is through some sort of a mind-matter interaction. So you have that, you have telepathy, you have advanced, perceptions and extraordinary ways to collect and analyze data, all through a development of consciousness. Outside. Not putting the brain aside, the physical brain, but certainly the consciousness is what can be opened up to us.
Really love how your book introduced readers to extraterrestrials. How long have you been involved with them?
Well, I've had a yearning or inkling or something like that in the Pleiades since I was a kid. I was into religion pretty much in my teens, quite a bit, and I was reading the book of Job, and I read about the story when Job was going on hard times. He started complaining, and God says, "Who set the bounds of Pleiades and Orion?" And I was like, wow, that he was so specific. Like, why those two constellations? And then I learned not too long after that most constellations, like the Big Dipper, are made up of stars that go one way and another way and at different speeds. So 2,000 years ago, the Big Dipper didn't exist because there were stars going in different ways. But Pleiades and Orion, all their stars are going in the same direction, the same speed. And so I just had this affinity to the Pleiadians. And so when you talk about Egypt, the Temple of Hathor, some of the spiritual metaphysical people say there's a lot of connections with the seven sisters of the Hathors to the seven stars of Pleiades. And I felt very much at home and at peace in there. And then the third thing is that we had on this one podcast a psychic story that I work on at times. We had a witch that was on for that episode, and she was a wonderful person, Wiccan witch. She kind of like said it's about the same. And she said, let's, one way to connect with the spirit world is through scrying. And she explained that scrying was you take a mirror in a darkened room. It could be a large mirror, small mirror, put a candle, gaze into your eyes, and just go with whatever happens. So I tried that, and I just started writing. I had these ideas in my head that I had to just write down. And it was like a dialogue, like somebody was giving me a dialogue to write. So anyway, weeks after weeks, and this happened, and it was all very positive, very uplifting, very supportive, very insightful content. I couldn't ask questions. I could just write down. But I was wondering, what is this? Who is this? Who is this writing? Who am I hearing from here? And after one session, the last line was, "We are the Pleiadians." And I was like, wow, I didn't know that I didn't see that coming. And so that is my connection. I mean, there other people have very much direct interaction with ETs and even the spirit world. But for me, that's it. The rest of my connections with with Pleiadians and ETs is mainly like most of the people on the planet now. Most your ET connections are done at the subconscious and unconscious level. Why? Because we just can't handle, having a almond-shaped, eyeballs looking at you, sitting across the room. So that's how they address us.
I think some people are more prepared for that than others. So.
Yes. Yeah, and supposedly we're all prepared, because it is such a different thing. We're all prepared. Anybody has physical, even a so-called abduction, we're all prepared telepathically or even prior to this lifetime that we're going to be involved with an ET, in detail or in close proximity.
Well, and I know you've touched on several ET groups. Is there one that you're feeling more connected to than others?
Yeah, the Pleiadians, to me, I always felt that, and I haven't said this yet. So first time, many times in my dreams, I feel like I'm on some other planet, and there's like bug-like creatures, which would be the mantis creatures. And I usually discarded that because it just seems so like weird. But I'm going to I want to ask to explore that to the level that I can handle. You always have to ask. You always have to state that. But certainly the Pleiadians are more aligned with. They're the more a lot of people say that they're more like a Scandinavian. They're light skinned. They're more humanoid, and they're gentle, loving people or beings. The mantis, same thing, but they just look like giant bugs, which would definitely throw anybody off.
I think if we have ET groups that we are looking more familiar, like, it's probably easier for people to connect to.
Yeah, I agree 100%. A lot of us have been, and I mapped this out. A lot of we're all hybrids here on Earth. That we are star seeds. Most of us are hybrids. Some of us are star seeds, which have more of a intentional existence on this planet, to help in the transition. But everybody else, we're a combination of different civilizations that have been hybridized over the millennia. As different planets explored the galaxy and the universe. Pleiadians landed here, Lyrians landed here, reptilians landed here, and intermingled our DNA to some extent.
I know you've covered so much already. How can people prepare for individual awakening or interactions with ETs?
Well, the one surprising thing So when I was told that this was the book, about awakening, Melissa said right after that, oh, by the way, it's going to be galactic in nature. And I had no clue what she meant by that. I was just arm's length interested in ETs, but not to any extent in depth. But now going through this year and learning about them, one surprising thing that hit me was that the the most important connection that we can make when considering our involvement with ETs, the first connection is within ourselves. That means that we have to uncover a lot of our baggage in a sense and learn to accept ourselves as in all aspects of our lives. And by that, I mean that if we have conflict, we have anger, we have things deep inside that we haven't resolved, that's going to impact our communication with ETs in the sense that it will be blocking. It will be blocking that. And so the answer to that is shadow work, which is a very common thing. Carl Jung kind of brought that up to popularity. And it's the things that we fear, and the things that we're embarrassed about, the things that we want to keep hidden. The reason why that's important is because ETs can see all that immediately when they look at us. When they look at us or consider us, they see our awakened state, they see our subconscious and unconscious state. So when we're a mess, emotionally and not addressing things in our past and this and that, then they have a very difficult time interacting with us. So that is the one thing that I have 2 chapters on preparing for contact. That comes through very strong from a number of sources that say you deal with that first. Not that you have to be a perfect person. You just have to accept everything about yourself with unconditional love. And that's when your coherent emotions and thoughts will align, just like Stephen Greer. He's a famous ufologist and does a lot about helping people to connect coherent emotions and thought. Once that is aligned, you won't have fear. Your fears will be lessened, and you will be open to contact with our extraterrestrial neighbors.
Well, Scott, you're such an inspiration. Your book is just such a profound read, Awkward Awakening. Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about your work?
Well, thanks. Yeah, my website is angelandtraining.org. And in there, I have a lot of different resources, podcasts, articles, and then the books that I've written, the last 2, the Angel book, and then this book is available. You could get to it there. But they are available on Amazon, audiobook, paperback, soon to be hardcover, and soon ebook available. And for the holidays, shortly I'm going to have signed copies available if you for gift purposes. But that, and then also Barnes and Noble. So yeah, the book's widely available, and you can contact me through my website, and look forward to interacting with. Now, I was told that I have 2 more books to write on this subject, and I invite people to, if they have an inkling or a move or lead to participate, send me an email, and let's see what the next book is going to be about.
Well, Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Oh, thank you, Marianne. Appreciate the time and just being able to share the message that is so important in this world today.
Well, thank you, Dr. Scott Guerin. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Awkward Awakening, Finding Your Way Home. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.